Yeah, he was 16.
He was the one that got paid 12.2 million. He got the most because he spent the most time in jail. But $12 million.
I mean, they seem to be doing pretty well. Like,
Yeah.
who was it? Youssef, he's a
He's an
public
activist,
speaker.
he's a public speaker, yeah.
Right.
Who's the, oh man,
It's
it's another gentleman. He has an apparel line.
Try.
yeah.
Yeah.
McCrae.
He has
Yeah.
an apparel line.
Yeah.
Corey, I think he does, like I said, he's with the Innocence Project going.
Listen, the one that got me was Kevin.
That was the smaller one, right?
Kevin, man,
Yeah,
I wanted to
he's
go
the
to the
youngest.
TV to get that boy. I wanted to get him out of there so bad.
Yeah, he was the baby.
He didn't have his father there. He didn't have it. His mother wasn't even there. But for him to have to endure that at that age and be beaten and then told that he had to lie about it, man, listen, I ain't going to spoil it for you. But
Yeah, don't
that
spoil
kid right there,
Yeah.
I wanted to go through, grab that kid out of there so bad and just, I don't even know karate. But I would have been pretending. I'd have been karate.
Another thing that struck me was that each of them had, for the most part, stable family life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whether, some of them might not have had the father in the household, but they had a stable household.
They were just good kids.
Yeah, like
they
it
were
wasn't
really good kids.
It was the normal, childhood for the most part. What it was portrayed on the film, like it wasn't anything out of control, or they grew up, dealing with certain things.
But then
stereotypes,
when
I
they
should say.
see us, that title is so profound.
It is.
Because the image that the prosecutor or the police officers that fabricated this story to try to make something that was not.
Creating a narrative.
So they made these boys appear to be animals. They used very specific words to try to create an image in the minds of those who did not know these children.
Absolutely.
To make them feel as though they were nothing as animals. Even in fact, I believe they used those words.
Yeah. Monsters, animals.
Yes, and by doing so, it not only reflected bad on the police department, but the individuals who were making that. I mean, you'll find it in the show when you see it. The person that was coming from needed help. They were hurt in some very, very real ways. So how they were able to get away with being missed from the standpoint of these people need help. Like, for real. They need real psychological help for you to be able to put a human being in a position where they're the target. Not just any human being, but a child. I mean, these kids were musicians, scholars. They were just your average kid who likes basketball, baseball, football. They just want to live and enjoy life. So for them to make these kids appear to be monsters, animals, putting words in their mouths, that's something that, for me, says to the other person needs to be helped.
Yeah.
They need some help.
It's definitely all about vocabulary. I think this is probably why I get so upset when I hear a lot of our younger people use the word savage.
When they use it like it's positive.
They're like, "Oh man, I'm a savage. I blah blah."
I'm a beast out here. What?
Like, do we really want to portray this savagery there by speaking? Like, I get it. You try to put a different connotation on words, but words mean something, and they have definitely powerful meanings.
Right, because you can't
they do.
negate the denotation.
Exactly. The word savage is just, it kind of bothers me. But, I mean, regardless of how, I know we talked about us policing ourselves or correcting ourselves. Regardless of that, it still doesn't negate how other people treat us. It's like having a sibling. They're like, I could talk about you, but I don't want nobody else talking about you. It's the same, kind of concept. I mean, it still doesn't negate the inequalities and the adversities that we face from other groups. I think it's a little easier to swallow when it's from our own, because that's our
Well, how
family.
do you want to be treated?
And it doesn't negate it. And I'm not saying that we should overlook it or negate anything. But what I'm saying is, if we don't know how to treat each other, how are we going to teach another race to treat us?
They still won't.
But
Even if we were to treat ourselves, okay. So we'll say, for instance, what's the oldest black community in the country is Eatontown, Florida, right? Eatonville, Florida. It's one of the oldest black communities.
Bring it, Cam. I love when you come over.
I know.
So
come on, Cam. Come on.
We could there's even another one in Philly. I can't even think of it right now, but the gentleman that was in that group, he just got released from prison on some that's a whole nother story. But Eatonville, Florida. Okay, in that community, a community completely made up of black people, treated each other well. It was a family, right? So if they treated each other well, and everybody saw that how beautiful this village or this town was, and that still didn't stop somebody from trying to burn it down, it still didn't stop people from killing them inside this community. What other obstacles? I mean,
but here's how I think about that. We are not the minority anymore. And everybody keeps saying we are so powerful when we get together.
We are, definitely.
When we get together.
But that's what I was saying, kind of like we still have that sibling mentality. Like, I can beat up on you, but can't nobody else beat up on you. Is that the wrong mentality to have?
Yes.
Yes,
absolutely.
it is.
Because remember, and I'm going to try
it
to
is.
make this as light as possible. Remember when Cat Williams said it's called self-esteem. We need to have it for ourselves first. If we have it, then we'll be more concerned about how you treat another. Because you're not going to treat somebody bad if you don't want to be treated bad.
Yeah. And I used to say that I can talk about you, but I ain't going to let nobody else talk about you. But then after a while, it's like, that's stupid.
Yeah.
Why would you
Jedi
talk
mind
about
trick.
them yourself?
Right.
You know, so you have to change your thought process about it. And I firmly believe that when we get on one accord about how we treat each other, how we handle each other, how we speak to each other, the world will see us differently.
I also think if we stop caring so much about how they see us.
Yeah.
I honestly think that would be
That's good.
that's the solution. If
That's
we
good.
stop looking for validation from everybody else, the approval from everybody else, we would be okay.
Yeah.
And that's in entertainment and sports. And if we just created our own and said, you know what, we don't even need whatever y'all got going on over here.
But you realize that would take away all those likes. That would take away all the people that are doing the selfies or just sitting on camera, driving, and the camera's on.
But even that
would take away that. And that's where the people who don't have that affirmation at home, where they're going to get it if they can't get it there.
But just like I brought up the guy, Idris Sandu, the coder. That was the reason why he wanted to create our own platform. So we don't, we still are not looking for the approval of other people. We got our own platform. We can create our own narratives. We can tell our own stories. We can get our own likes from one another, building that self-esteem within the community that we're talking about. I think, and that's going to bring on a whole nother topic of integration that we probably don't want to dive into, but I definitely think we should probably...
We're going to dive into it because, hey, we talk about what don't nobody want to talk about.
Yeah.
Well, what do you think about we're literally putting the responsibility back onto the individual.
Hold us accountable.
Because it's us, you know, even with the five, all of them wanted to be somewhere else other than where they were.
Yeah.
You know, it was nothing attractive about being where they were, happy with them, even in their own, well, it was their own community, but the young man took off from his girl. He could have been happy right there. Would have never had to deal with the situation had he just stayed right there. Being happy with your environment, being happy with your people, and then promoting it.
So, I know you have a lot to say, Cam, about this. But we need to move on. Hey, I wanted to talk a little bit about Maleah Davis, the 4-year-old who was tragically murdered, and they found her body.
What was it, last week?
Last week. We want to send prayers to the family.
Absolutely.
Of this child. Rest well, baby girl. Rest well. I read an article that a lot of people in Houston are trying to have the mother brought up on charges. And I was trying to figure out just why. If I got the story right, Cam, correct me because I know you looked into it.
Yeah.
She was away out of town at her father's funeral and left the baby with her
stepfather. Well, Fiance.
She's engaged to this man,
Right.
and they have children together. It's still unclear what he did to her. We just know that he had a hand in her murder.
So the timeline was, I think, May 30th.
Early May, yeah.
Yeah. There's footage of him walking into their apartment and Maleah behind him. And then there's no footage of Maleah ever coming out of the apartment. The last footage they have of him leaving the apartment is holding a laundry basket with the trash bag inside of it. But no Maleah. They never saw her after May 30th. And he didn't report her missing until, I believe, the 2nd of June.
Yeah.
So maybe a couple days after.
Fabricated story about what happened. And
yeah, he said he got beat up by 4 Mexican men. When he woke up, it was just him and the youngest child that they had taken, Maleah. He had like a couple scratches. The younger one was in the hospital, but he was treated and was released that same day. It was also stated that he then said that he doesn't remember anything, but was able to give that story. So it was just very back and forth. But they, excuse me, the reason they were asking that the mother be brought up on charges is because 2018, all the siblings, Maleah included, had been removed from that household with talks of neglect and abuse. She had brain surgery at the age of 2 and 3 because of abuse. Like had part of her skull removed because supposedly the story was she was with the boyfriend again. She climbed on something and hit her head on a marble counter or table. And they said that she was okay. And wound up being that she had internal bleeding, which led to the different surgeries.
Yeah.
So her being brought up on charges, I think is very, very much an action that needs to be taken.
Do you?
That ain't gonna help. That's not gonna help, though. That's not gonna help.
Do you really think from a mother's perspective that she planned to have or had a hand in her daughter being murdered while she's taking care of some other business with her family?
You cannot tell me that there's been
history of abuse.
Exactly, a history of abuse in your home. And you're saying you didn't see anything? There's no... I don't believe that.
I think the mother was abused to the point that she had brain damage. She was messed up. This
because
man
even if she didn't touch
dirt.
The child herself, you had to have seen something that caused you to think, well, maybe...
But you're giving her way too much credit. I mean, she doesn't necessarily have to be at the place where she has the capacity to make that decision. She has been abused. This baby didn't have no help from the get-go.
Well, we don't know if the mother had been abused. So
man, you got to be abused to leave your baby in a situation like that. She stayed with this dude?
No, she was engaged to this
How you gonna get engaged after all that? You got to be messed up.
Well, we don't know intricate details, and I only brought it up to say that it triggered something in me with because we hear all the time in Cleveland about our kids dying at the hands of boyfriends, and we just need to be careful about who we have our children around.
Man, you kidding me? For
men
real?
and women included.
For real?
Men and
y'all
women
serious?
included.
Y'all
Men
don't
and
think
women
this
included.
man beat that girl? Beat the mother?
We can't assume that.
Man,
we cannot assume that.
Yes, you can. If he would beat that baby,
No.
this dude was beating that woman. I'm telling you, I'm telling you, I believe this boy was beating on a mother, and she was too afraid. She had been put in a situation where she was afraid. She's scared to say anything.
Yeah, we
and
have
then when them
seen
babies
it.
was taking abuse, are you kidding me? That dude need to be thrown up under the jail and fried.
We have seen it, but I've also seen instances where a female was newly married, 2-3 years married to a guy who never touched her, treated her like a queen, and abused the hell out of their children. So you can't always assume that she was being beat. There are different circumstances, and people are just evil, and you don't always see it coming. So we can't say that she was